Welcome to our second workshop in our series of mindful resilience. I'm Eugenie Lewis. I am a therapist, career, and college counselor. I created a company called Creative Life Mapping. The idea behind my company is to support people in their lives and their career development, and also with their resilience skills. So the reason I developed this series was because of the concern about what particularly students are going through, but also teachers and healthcare workers and mental health providers in these challenging times. And so I felt that, if we could learn as much as we can about the brain and how we can kind of marshal our resources as best we can in these difficult times, that we will be better off and feeling stronger. So just a reminder of the framework that we're using here. These are some of the different components that are covered in these different sessions. And they include living mindfully, values and purpose, thinking flexibly, self-care of mind and body, social and family bonds, and growing resilience skills. So just to review from our last session, we talked about our resilience in general, and that being our ability to bounce back from adversity. And there are qualities that we want to cultivate, like having a sense of purpose, or practicing mindfulness, practicing healthy thinking skills, connecting socially. And all of these things help to develop our resilience. We also talked about neuroplasticity, and this is our ability to change our brain by practicing using our mind in specific ways. And it's a very optimistic science learning about neuroplasticity, because we've learned in many different ways how either we can learn new habits and skills that we haven't had before, we can even negate bad habits, and we can also heal from sometimes even injuries or trauma. So it's a very wonderful field, and I recommend, as that you learn more about it as we go along, and there are wonderful resources. There was one book I didn't mention last time, which was The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge, and he talks a lot about how people who have different, like for example, suffer from stroke or physical pain, or lose the power of an arm or a leg, how people can use neuroplasticity to really, in a way, rehabilitate themselves. So it's a very fascinating study. He went around the country and around the world and interviewed scientists that are studying these different mechanisms. Last time we also talked about stress, and that there's good stress that helps us achieve optimal performance. That was called eustress. But then there's also stress that can, when we're exposed to prolonged stress, it can have a toxic effect on our body, and it can cause health problems. And so out of that learning, we want to learn how to relax and regulate our bodies. And we talked last time about the relaxation response. And this is a practice that you can use throughout the day to reduce stress and improve your health. And you can also practice it regularly. In our last session, we talked about generating positive emotions, and that our brain has a negativity bias, and we can consciously, so we need to kind of compensate for the negativity bias of kind of looking out for danger, or keeping alert with our amygdala to notice things that are happening in our environment, that we can consciously redirect our attention to positive experiences and emotions. In our discussion of the limbic system, we learned about the amygdala and how it alerts us to danger, and that we can this, the amygdala can kind of take over at times, and we need to learn how to balance our brain with our prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex, we talked about how that is the thinking part of our brain, the most advanced part of our brain as a human being, and how developing that, particularly in the early parts of our life, are important. And we do that by, and interestingly enough, mindfulness is one way we can develop our prefrontal cortex. So I just wanted to, at this time, do introductions and present you with some logistics for the meeting. I do recommend that you have on hand some paper and pencil or a pen. And you can, if you'd like, create a resilience journal or over the course of some of these workshops. So welcome, everybody. So glad you could join us. It's great to see just a variety of people that are able to join us today. So we'll go ahead and get started here. If I can get my slide to move along. Be doing that. Give me just one moment here. Okay, so this is our second in a series of workshops on mindful resilience, and it's entitled Living Mindfully. So to tie this to our resilience framework, the American Psychological Association identified living mindfully as an essential skill of resilience and one we can actually cultivate with practice. And there are many mindful practices such as mindful meditation, there's journaling, yoga, other spiritual practice that help us build connections and restore hope. Through a regular mindful practice, we learn not to be overly reactive and overwhelmed by what's going on inside us and around us. When we bring awareness to what we are directly experiencing through our senses or a state of mind or our thoughts or emotions, we're being mindful. There are many different types of practices. There's mindful breathing, and there are many, many types of practices that can help with a number of different situations. We have things like mindful breathing, mindful loving kindness meditation. There's mindful eating. Mindfulness is used to control pain, physical pain. It also can be used for sleep to help wind down at the end of a day. And as I've mentioned a little bit earlier, the mindful practice, which is considered to be where you regularly practice mindfulness, can actually help develop our prefrontal cortex, or our thinking part of our brain, which balances the reaction of the stress response. So this is my mindful living framework. We're going to talk about some of these different dimensions: mindful breathing, sensing, being aware of ourselves, being aware of others, loving kindness, and focusing our attention. So, and this is an outline of what we're going to be covering. We're going to cover some of the benefits and how to practice it. We're going to actually experiment with a couple of practices, and then we're going to talk about more practices that you can do, on your own. And we'll be also covering more of these kinds of things over the course of all these workshops. So, I wanted to mention just in general that there are both formal and informal mindful practices. Formal practices are when you set aside several minutes every day or most days, and you have a place and you go to it for maybe 5 to 20 minutes and practice, where you pay attention and focus on your breathing or do a guided meditation. So that's a formal practice. And then there are informal practices, which we do just on a daily basis, and we can do that throughout our day. We can stop and pause at a stop sign and do some deep breathing and just notice the trees or the sky. So those are informal practices. And as you get into this, you learn how you can apply it throughout your life. So there are a lot of different definitions, but they all have similar elements of what mindfulness is. So I'm going to start with a pioneer in the field of mindfulness, a gentleman by the name of John Kabat-Zinn, who developed a program called mindfulness-based stress reduction at the University of Massachusetts. He defines mindfulness as awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So you can see that awareness, and awareness can be many different things. Awareness of both what's happening inside us and what's happening around us. And it's being in the present moment and being non-judgmental. We're not judging ourselves, we're just observing. Mindfulness is a diverse set of skills, and it's kind of a form of mental training. And you can learn to observe thoughts or feelings or sensations in a moment-by-moment way. And the opposite of being mindful would be, in being unmindful, would be something we call being on autopilot, which is where you don't even remember what you did. Like, for example, sometimes this happens to me where I brushed my teeth and I've forgotten that I brushed my teeth because I was on autopilot. That you forget something you just did, and that means you're not really in the present moment. So I guess one of the things that helps us with mindfulness is that by being in the present moment, we're not worried about something in the future. We're not dwelling over something that happened in the past. We're right in the here and now. And one of the main ways we do that is by engaging in our body. So here's another definition of mindfulness. And I just wanted to share that a lot of the practices, or some of the practices today, come from my own learning of mindfulness. And I took a course at the UCLA Mindfulness Awareness Research Center, and which is an excellent source for free guided meditations, including some of the ones we'll experience today. And there's Diana Winston, who's the director of mindfulness education at UCLA, defines mindfulness as paying attention in the present moment experiences with open curiosity and a willingness to be with what is. So that, as you can see with that last part of the statement, there's an acceptance there that we can't always alter things. We sometimes just say, okay, there it is. I may not like it, but it is there. And so Diana Winston is an excellent resource. And one of the things you can do is you can go to this website, which we'll have on a resource list that you'll get at the end. So when we learn how to be mindful, we give ourselves some more space. We learn to understand our bodies better, to connect with it. We learn how not to be so reactive. We also gives us space to make choices. So like we can pause and decide, what do I want to do about this? I can engage my thinking mind. We can help us feel more peaceful, ease, and have more balance in our lives. So we start by learning mindful breathing. And then there are many, many, as I mentioned before, other ways that we can focus our attention, including to sounds or body sensations, emotions, or mental states. So this just kind of reinforces some of the qualities of mindfulness. And that includes being in the present, bringing yourself like, I'm here right now. And I'm not judging myself, I'm not judging other people. I'm just being with what is. It's being focused, alert. You're not like you're falling asleep or, lying down like, oh, I fall asleep. Sometimes that does happen, but we do want to be alert because we're attending to certain things. We're also curious. Like we might be kind of like a scientist, like looking at ourselves with some objectivity. It can help our ground in our bodies, and we can also either savor pleasant experiences, or it can help us face difficult emotions. And a lot in the field of mental health, we find that avoiding emotions doesn't really help us. Sometimes people learn to avoid emotions with unhealthy coping strategies, like using substances or engaging in activities that take them away, or maybe even avoiding doing things because of, worries about anxiety or things. But what we've realized is that to really engage in the world, we need to even face difficult emotions. So there are many benefits of mindfulness, and the science is growing, and we are learning more and more about how a regular practice of mindfulness really has multiple benefits. And just to name a few of these benefits, we found that it can reduce stress, it can help our immune systems, it can help us come up with healthy coping strategies as opposed to unhealthy coping strategies. It can increase our awareness, and we can be more in tune with other people or in tune with ourselves. It improves our attention. Actually, this is something else I want to mention, and we'll be talking a little bit later about, but mindfulness can even help with attention problems, people that have trouble focusing their attention. And it can also increase positive feelings. So then some other things that aren't listed here are reducing addictive behaviors, releasing creative energy. Athletes have found that it helps enhance performance. So as you can see, it has many, many different things. And I guess in this next, I'm going to be showing a brief video that will describe some of the benefits and how it relates to neuroplasticity. So I'll go ahead, and this will be about a 6 or 7 minute video. So I hope all of you can hear this.
Meditation is an ancient technique that trains the brain for the power of concentration. It's like a gym workout for your brain. Archaeologists have found meditation to be 5,500 years old, while only 60 years ago, modern scientists began to study the brains of meditators. They discovered that meditation changes the structure of the brain, making it a lot more powerful. Long-term meditators are often able to develop superhuman abilities like the ability to stay calm in pressure situations such as exams and sport, more original and creative ideas, and excellent memory. An experiment showed that meditating monks were able to dry icy wet sheets in a cold temperature by controlling and raising their own body temperature with the power of the mind. To understand how meditation affects us, we must first look at the most recent discoveries about the brain. In the last 10 years, scientists have discovered that every time we think, feel, or learn something new, a neural connection appears in our brain. Those things that we repeat the most, like a habit, make these connections grow stronger and stronger. And over time, the connections that we don't use grow weaker and eventually disappear. This is why our habits are automatic and we don't have to think before doing them. For example, because you practice brushing your teeth every day, it seems a lot more effortless than washing your dishes after you have eaten, even though both tasks take about the same amount of time to complete. But if you stop brushing your teeth for a few days, it will also begin to seem like a more difficult task. Some neuroscientists have suggested that we don't choose most of our behavior. Instead, It is programmed by these neural connections in our brain. Think about the tip of an iceberg, which is the smallest part. This represents all the things that we can choose consciously, such as solving a maths problem. The larger part of the iceberg is all of our unconscious thoughts and feelings, which cause most of our behavior, like reacting to arguments in the same way again and again, even if afterwards we know it was wrong. This happens because we are not aware that we are controlled by our unconscious emotions. In this unconscious part of our mind, neural connections are strong, so most people don't think they can change how they act and react in situations. This automatic way of acting is what we call personality. But mostly it's just those thoughts, emotions and habits that we have repeated the most growing up and continue to repeat on a daily basis. But this can all be changed. Our intelligence, skills and personality can all be developed through practice. We can literally train our brains to become cleverer, to learn a new talent, or to think differently in situations. So to change ourselves, we need to change our brains by creating new connections and practicing them until they become strong and automatic. This means that stuff that we find hard now will become easier and easier the more we practice it. Think back to when you struggled to read. It would take you a while to get through a sentence, and now it's automatic. You don't need to stop and think about how to read words you already know. You just do it. Amazingly, meditation practice helps us change all of those things by creating new connections in many different parts of the brain, literally making your brain larger in size. So, how do you practice meditation? Well, it's really simple. All you have to do is concentrate on your breathing and allow thoughts and feelings to come and go. With continuous practice, your skills of attention, concentration, and awareness significantly increase. But it's actually quite hard to concentrate on your breath and nothing else. This is because on average, we have about 50,000 thoughts each day. 98% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as we had yesterday, and 80% of those thoughts are negative. Stress, worry, and irritability is a direct result of those thoughts, which are either regrets about the past, which we can no longer change, or worry about the future, which hasn't even yet happened, but we experience stress and worry in the present moment, causing us to behave in very unhelpful ways. The more we worry, the better we become at worrying, which is a negative habit. Overthinking leads to continuous stress, and continuous stress leads to mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Meditation has been shown to decrease the size of the amygdala, which is the fear center of our brain, and this is where all our negative emotions and thoughts come from. It also decreases the level of stress hormone, cortisol, which overall means that you can deal with stressful situations a lot better. During meditation, you also learn the skill of how to watch your thoughts and emotions without reacting to them. This means that with continuous meditation practice, you can significantly change your behavior and even your personality. This can help you to achieve your personal goals because you're less likely to procrastinate or worry about other people's opinions about you. Scientists are still discovering all the other benefits of meditation, such as its ability to make you more creative, better at learning and remembering things, increasing self-confidence, and making you kinder towards other people around you. Leaders of big companies, athletes, and even pop stars use meditation as a way of training their minds. And the NHS now use meditation to treat a variety of mental health issues. It's even been shown that meditation is more effective than using drugs. Not bad, hey? For saying all you need to do is sit still for 20 minutes, close your eyes, and concentrate.
Okay, everybody hear that okay? Trying to,
Yes.
okay, great, thank you. Trying to advance, I'm learning how to, I apologize for the interruptions. I realizing that every movement I make on the computer can affect the technology. So next, we're going to move on and talk a little bit about some practices. Let me see here. Sorry. Yes, some practices we're going to try out, including belly breathing or mindful breathing meditation. We're going to do a little activity related to self-awareness and loving kindness, have a loving kindness meditation, which I think is very nice for today. Just to maybe introduce this concept of, this is an overview of what we're going to talk about breathing. We're going to talk a little bit about the science of breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, mindful breathing, and some other practices. So why are we concerned about breathing? Breathing is pretty important, as you can imagine. It has a major role in most mindful meditations, or most, I think probably all of them. And what we want to do is we want to increase our awareness of the role that breathing takes place and how it affects even the tension in our bodies, and it also contributes to the stress response. And one of the things we've learned about breathing is that you can engage a relaxing feeling by doing deep breathing. I mean, it can help with the relaxation response that we talked about last time. So we want to learn how to breathe deeply. We'll be talking about diaphragmatic breathing in a minute. It gives us a method of staying calm and by using relaxing breaths. And one of the advantages of breathing, of using breath in our meditation practice or mindful meditation practice, is that it's something that's always with us. So we don't have to carry it around. It's just, we can engage it at different times wherever we are, whether we're walking or on an airplane or, wherever we might be preparing for an exam in class. And we can use our breathing, and it's good to learn how you can engage your breathing as you're practicing. So breathing is a vital component to our health and well-being. With mindful practice, we have a chance to change our mental state. And as I mentioned, with the relaxation response, we can use our breath to engage relaxation. I guess just to make a comment about breathing meditation, is one of the things we learn is by directing our attention to our breath, we are attending to our body and what's going on in our body. And that is can be a key thing in mindful practices. Scientists have learned that by changing our mental state, it can actually affect the regulation of our genes in terms of science. It can allow certain genes to be turned on or turned off. I saw a presentation a little while ago on this Resilience Summit where they were talking about how it's good to do a little bit of, how you start your day and how you end your day affect the health of your genes, which relate also to aging. 15 genes have been found to be supported by relaxing your body, and many of these are involved with handling stress and cellular metabolism. So it kind of breathing brings things to a cellular level and has multiple benefits. So what I wanted to first talk about, just as we're talking about breathing, is that there's what we call controlled breathing, where you're kind of consciously regulating your breathing in a certain way. And then there's just a kind of a natural breathing, which our practice will be in a moment. But to start off with our first practice, what I would like you to do is practice what we call diaphragmatic breathing. And when we do diaphragmatic breathing, or what we call belly breathing, it engages our muscle in our diaphragm that will help, it helps to bring relaxation. It's a large muscle that rests across the bottom of your rib cage. And when you inhale, the diaphragm muscle drops, opening up space so air can come in. And when we're watching someone do this, it looks like your stomach is filling up with air. It extends out. And it can help us decrease our heart rate and our blood pressure and our muscle tension, and overall gives us a feeling of relaxation. So what I'd like you to do right now is take one hand and put it on your upper chest and the other hand on your belly. And what I'd like you to do is just practice for a moment, breathing in slowly and deeply. And see if you can notice your belly rising when you inhale, and when you exhale, exhale through your pursed lips, I guess you could say. So let's just take 3 deep breaths and notice your stomach rising when you breathe in. So I hope you had a chance to try that out. And I recommend that you practice this a little bit, because even though breathing seems like just a normal, natural thing to everybody, it is good to learn this practice and try it a little bit. You can either do it in a chair, or I have found it very helpful to lie on the floor with your knees up, if if that works for you. And actually, in schools, like there are such things as mindful schools, in where children actually will lie on the floor and put like a teddy bear or something over their stomach, and so they can watch the bear go up and down. So that's another thing you could do. You could put something on your stomach just to see if you can actually notice it rising. So now what we're going to talk about is something where we call natural breathing. It's not where we're trying to control our breathing in a certain way. It's called mindful a mindful meditation with breathing. And this is a general way of getting set up to do any kind of mindful meditation, is to sit comfortably. You just notice your body. You put your both feet on the floor. You soften your gaze, or you can close your eyes, whichever you feel comfortable with. And you feel your breath. And if you'll notice, if your mind wanders, you're going to return your breath to that. You're going to return your mind to the breath, and you're going to be attending to your breath. And so now we're going to actually do a mindful breathing practice. So this takes about 5 minutes. And what I would like you to do is get into that comfortable position with good posture, your feet on the floor, distributing your weight evenly, and we'll go ahead and start this practice. So find a relaxed, comfortable position, seated on a chair or a cushion, and keep your back upright but not too tight. Hands resting wherever they're comfortable. Tongue on the roof of your mouth or wherever it's comfortable. And you can notice your body from the inside, noticing the shape of your body, the weight, touch. Just let yourself relax and become curious about your body seated here. The sensations of your body, the touch, the connection with the floor, the chair. Relax any areas of tightness or tension. Just breathe, soften. And now begin to tune into your breath in your body. Feeling the natural flow of breath. You don't need to do anything to your breath. Not long, not short, just natural. And notice where you feel your breath in your body. It might be in your abdomen, it might be in your chest or your throat or in your nostrils. See if you can feel the sensations of breath, one breath at a time. When one breath ends, the next breath begins. Now, as you do this, you might notice that your mind might start to wander. You might start thinking about other things. If this happens, this is not a problem. It's very natural. Just notice that your mind has wandered. You can say thinking or wandering in your head softly. And then gently redirect your attention right back to the breathing. So we'll stay with this for some time in silence, just a short time, noticing our breath. From time to time, getting lost in thought. And when that happens, returning to our breath. See if you can be really kind to yourself in the process. So we'll just pause here for a moment and just notice your breathing. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes, or we can talk a little bit about how that experience was for you. Maybe what you could do is take a moment, if you could, either if you would like to unmute yourself and make a comment about that experience, or if you want to put a note in the chat box of what that felt like for you. Any feedback, discussion, questions? Are you with us?
Yes, that was a really good practice. I really do like that, especially now with school starting and with, daily news about different things changing. It's nice just to kind of turn off the news or turn off the TV or get away from the phone and just, maybe look outside, see nature, and just kind of get back to focus without reacting or being so stressed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was Ari?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Ari. I also got some comments here. Lori said breathing helps reduce the anxiety by relaxing. It it helped me feel connected to my body. It felt refreshing. Gail saying it was very relaxing, and interfering thoughts were not as urgent as usual. So thank you for those comments. I wanted to mention that this particular breathing practice, which is about 5 minutes, is something that when I took this class at the Mindful Awareness Research Center several years ago, they gave us a tape, which actually, by the way, I wanted to tell you is available on the meditation. Both a guided meditation and the transcript are available on the UCLA website, which you'll have in your resource packet. But I would do that. I created a spot in my house where I would go every morning and I would just do that 5-minute practice. And sometimes it's good to start small and then grow. Now I do a little bit longer practice in the morning. But that one was really a core practice that I continued. And, you know, if you're getting started, it could be a good one. Any other comments or questions about this practice? Okay, I guess we'll move on to talk a little bit about mindful sensing. Mindful sensing is another way to connect with our body, and we can do it through any of the 5 senses of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, or smelling. And some examples of this, and I think we talked a little bit about how you can do this when we were talking about generating positive emotions. But like, for example, with sight, if you're going out for a walk, you can look at the sky. I think that was one of the things I became much more aware of after taking a mindful class, that I would notice things much more closely. Like, oh, the sky looks really nice today. It's very blue and there's some clouds, nice clouds in the sky. Or I would notice like the trees, the leaves on the tree, or just notice changes that occur in the neighborhood. I've been doing a lot of walking lately, and I've become more aware of like just even slight changes. Sound would be, could be a pleasant sound, like listening to, as we talk, and aren't actually going to do that practice today, but there are some practices that you can do with sound meditation, like listening to a sound and you're focusing on that sound. Touching could be an informal practice, could be just noticing sensations, like, for example, you could feel the breeze against your face when the wind is blowing, or when you're taking a shower, you could notice the water flowing over your skin. Taste would be something like mindful eating. There's a classical meditation called the eating of raisin, where you kind of think of like, where did the raisin come from? Who produced the raisin? What is it? You look at it very carefully. Some of these things I would do if I was doing these workshops in person, but you can try this on your own, where you might try out just tasting, pausing and tasting, and then smelling. Smelling can be, one of the things we've learned about smell is that it can have associations, like pleasant associations. It sometimes could have unpleasant associations. Like, for example, I've noticed that when toast is cooking, or there's making toast, that's a very pleasant smell, and it reminds me of my childhood having toast. I don't know, somehow that's making toast is comforting to me. So those are some examples. We're not going to do a practice of that today, but I just wanted to share some different ways, formal or informal, you can practice this. So now what we're going to talk about is being aware of ourself. And this is another part of mindfulness that's actually very helpful in getting insight in ourselves, and we can become aware of our thoughts, our mental activity. I think you saw in that video earlier that 90% of our thoughts are repetitive and 80% are negative. I guess that was interesting. But by being aware of them, we could see patterns in our thoughts. And in terms of our feelings, like feeling happy, we have positive emotions, feeling happy or joyful or at ease or peaceful, or negative emotions like sadness, or oh, I feel sad right now. I just noticed, what was just happening here? What's going on with me? You can kind of pause and look at that. And then there are body sensations, and there's a kind of a whole emerging area, and we're realizing that, like there's this expression, get out of your mind and into your body, that by connecting ourselves with our body, we can get out of our thinking mind and just, be more connected with ourselves and kind of ground ourselves in our body. And then there's this other thing, which is a little more of a learning curve, even for me. I've been studying this, but just being aware of yourself, you know, being looking at your observer self, like what I notice myself noticing things, you know, you're kind of being aware of yourself. So those are some examples. And what I'd like to do now is a little practice, just to kind of start off. We're going to create what I call a self-awareness mandala. And what I'd like you to do is, if you can have if you have a pen and paper, if you could make a circle and with 4 quadrants in it. You could just take a moment to do that. Michelle, are you with us? Are you still having a connection?
No, I'm back. Thanks.
You're back. Okay, great. Okay, so everybody, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through step by step. So first, I'd like you to, in the upper left quadrant, I'd like you to just notice a thought that's going through your mind. Just take a moment right now to notice what you're thinking, and just jot it down on a piece of paper, or just even make note of it. So next, I would like you to identify one feeling that you have. It could be a positive feeling. It could be a kind of a neutral feeling, or a negative feeling that you might notice right now. Just take a moment to just note, be aware of what's going on with your feelings, your emotions. Next, I'd like you to take a note of any body sensation that you have. Anything that you feel in your body. Could be like a pressured feeling, a feeling you have in your stomach. It could be where, you know, touching the floor, the chair, any discomfort. Just make a note of that, any sensation. And now I'd like you to actually see if you can just observe yourself, like pretend you're kind of looking at yourself, or you're observing yourself. What do you notice about yourself? So this activity, I just like to get a little feedback from you, and just tell me a little bit if anyone would like to share any of those thoughts. If you could put them in the chat box, or you're welcome to unmute yourself, and we can share what we might have noticed.
Well, I'd like to share, Eugenie.
Yeah, please do, Gail.
So in the first box, I wrote potato salad. I'm going to a small picnic this Friday, so I'm bringing homemade potato salad, and it's kind of weighing heavy on my mind.
Oh, in what way? Because you're thinking like how you're going to make it, or when you're going to make it, or?
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to make it until Thursday evening, the night before, but still need to go and buy all the ingredients, and going to the store can be somewhat stressful.
Oh, so there's some, like, you're thinking about the future.
Yes. And then the second quadrant, I put hopeful. I really appreciated your guided meditation. I really felt such a sense of hope more latter toward the end of the meditation, but it's really an exciting feeling to feel that upsurge of hope. It doesn't come as often like that, So to feel that, it's really wonderful.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Thank you.
The third quadrant, I put energy. I'm feeling a sensation, real good energy.
Hmm.
And then the last quadrant, I put open-minded.
Hmm. Hmm. Nice. Good job. That's great.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Anybody else like to share? If you want to, you can share in the chat box or.
I just like to say that I really like that the mandala is like you can kind of map it out and see it on paper instead of just like thinking about it. Because thinking about it is one thing, but putting it down on paper makes everything like you can notice it more, you can be more aware and like know you're aware. So yeah, that's a cool part of that.
Wow, thank you. Well, that relates to creative life mapping then. You know, mapping things out. So thank you. That's really nice. I appreciate that. So I hope you can see from this activity how valuable it can be to identify what's going on with yourself. And this is sort of kind of a brief way of looking at it, but it is really good to notice what's going on and, you know, inside you. And this way, you know, I always believe that, you know, the more insight that we have into ourselves, the better, you know, the better we're able to handle things. And as you can see, you know, just, and I wanted to say that, you know, Gail gave a good example of how, you know, our thoughts can go toward, you know, thinking about something that's going to happen in the future and maybe even worrying a little bit about the future. So that's an example of, you know, we could actually label that thought as a planning thought, or maybe a little bit of a worrying thought, you know, about going to the store. And that's another element that we kind of bring into mindfulness, is the ability to notice these thought patterns and this mental activity. And then we can, you know, maybe we can become aware, like, wow, I'm really critical of myself. I got to, you know, do something about that. We could see, like, and there are certain thought patterns, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks when we talk about thinking flexibly, about how we have certain patterns of thinking that can cause us difficulties. Like, and there are certain patterns that are associated with things like anxiety or depression or trauma. We have certain patterns that and as you saw, you know, sometimes these repeat. And so if we can learn to diffuse some of these patterns of thinking by first becoming aware of them and then doing something about it, it's great. It can really help us and can help our well-being a great deal. So thank you, everybody, for participating in that. So we are going to move on to talk about being aware of other people, of others, and there's some concepts here that I maybe will just talk about in terms of attunement, which is being able to tune into another person, feeling attached or bonded with another person, having a sense of empathy and compassion. So these are some of the concepts we'll be talking about. Just to start off, because I'm trying to tie things into science, there's a science of mirror neurons, and these are neurons in our brain, a specialized neuron, that really relate to our social interactions and connections with other people. It allows us actually to imitate the actions of others and also even feel the emotions experienced by others. So for example, like if someone, you notice that someone injured themselves, you can almost feel that pain sometimes when you noticed the other person's, you know, injury. You can almost feel it yourself. And on the other hand, if it was in a positive way, our amygdala, which we said kind of was our part of our brain that, you know, relates to the fight or flight response, it relaxes when we see a pleasant, like a baby, like a mother gently rocking her baby, or we pet our dog, or, you know, we connect that way. So there are actually neural pathways that are associated with specific emotions such as pain, joy, and fear, and they're activated when we see someone's facial expression that expresses that emotion. So when a group works together in a positive way, like helping each other, or having, you know, doing something kind or helpful, these actual experiences release dopamine, which is a pleasure hormone, and it gives us a sense of a pleasant experience. And actually being kind is contagious, and studies show that people who focus on kindness have higher levels of dopamine and more empathy and compassion with others. We need compassion and empathy in the world. So I'm going to share a little video. This is by someone by the name of Brene Brown. I hope you can hear it. I hope it doesn't get too interrupted. But she's a licensed social worker in Texas who has done a lot of work, written books on vulnerability and compassion. And I'll just go ahead and share this video.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So I guess one of the fun, interesting things I've noticed about that video is that a lot of times people feel like they have to do something to make things better for you, like they have to solve your problem. But in reality, a lot of times it's just being able to connect with someone and have that, just share and with compassion and feeling and listen to a person and what they're going through. Let me see. I don't want to play that video again. Sorry. Just give me a moment here. I do want to just talk about a couple other concepts that didn't get totally covered, but that was a very good coverage of empathy and being able to see something from another person's point of view. There's the other concepts that were mentioned are attunement, and that's the experience of feeling seen and understood. And Dan Siegel, who's a neuropsychiatrist, has called this feeling felt. Like you know that someone actually has noticed how you feel and that they're connecting with that feeling. It's kind of like being able to relate to the person's inner world. That's called attunement. Attachment is a quality of a relationship between two people. And most often, a lot of times when we study mental health, we learn about early child development and how important it is for a parent and a child to feel a sense of attachment to their parent. And that means that they have a safe and secure base. And that's an important emotional bond, and it can connect people across time and space. Even after someone is no longer with us, you can have a sense. But this can be also relationships not only between a parent and a child, but it could be between a teacher and a student. It could be family or friends or loved ones. And it creates a sense of psychological safety and allows us to venture out into the world and feel like the world is an okay place. So as you can see, it's an important element of people's lives. And I know it's hard right now with COVID to be able to sometimes connect with people, but even, by connecting on video conferencing or talking to people on the phone can be very helpful. So now I would like to move to another practice, which is called a loving kindness meditation. And science has shown us that it's the importance of cultivating positive emotions for our general sense of well-being. We've talked about that. And loving kindness is an excellent way of doing this in our mindful practices. And it's basically helping to generate this natural quality that we have in our heart and our mind that we can access at any moment. You can do this by bringing to mind a person, a loved one, either past or present. Sometimes I actually connect with someone in my family that's no longer living, that was very close to me, that I can think of, that I bring to mind. But it's an unconditional kind of relationship of just being cared for. And so what I'd like to do now is I'd like to kind of have you go back into that position that we talked about earlier, where you're just getting into a comfortable position where either your feet on the floor, your hands relaxed on your lap, and either close your eyes or lower your eyes. And we're going to practice. Now, this is a little bit longer meditation, so bear with me, but I think it's a nice meditation for this time. So please enjoy. To begin this practice, let yourself be in a relaxed and comfortable position. We're going to do the practice of cultivation of positive emotion, in this case, loving kindness, which is a desire for someone to be happy or yourself to be happy. It's not dependent on something. It's not conditional. It's just a natural opening of the heart to someone else or to yourself. So you can check into your body and notice how you're feeling right now, letting whatever is here be here. Now let yourself bring to your mind someone whom, the moment you think of them, you feel happy. See if you can bring to mind. It could be a relative, a close friend, someone with not too complicated a relationship. Just a general sense that when you think of them, you feel happy. It could be a child, It could be a pet. It could be a dog or a cat. A creature it's fairly easy to feel love for. So let them come to mind. Have them. Have a sense of them for being in front of you. You can feel them, sense them, see them. And as you imagine them, notice how you're feeling inside. Maybe you feel some warmth, or there's some heat to your face, a smile, a sense of expansiveness. This is loving kindness. This is a natural feeling that's accessible to all of us at any moment. So now, having this loved one in front of you, begin to wish them well. May you be safe and protected from danger. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be healthy and strong. May you have ease and well-being. And as I say these words, you can use my words or your own words and have a sense of letting this loving kindness come from you and begin to touch this loved one, reaching out. You might think in images. You might have a sense of color or light. You might just have a feeling. The words may continue to bring on more of this feeling. And I encourage you to say whatever feels meaningful to you. May you be free from stress and anxiety. May you be free from all fear. And so, as you're sending out these words and these feelings of loving kindness, also check into yourself and see how you're feeling inside. And now imagine that this loved one turns around and begins to send it back to you. So see if you can receive the loving kindness. Take it in. And they're wishing you well. May you be happy, meaning you. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be safe and protected from all danger. May you have joy and well-being. Letting yourself take it in. Now, if you're not feeling anything at this point or before in this meditation, it's not a problem. This is a practice that plants seeds. And if you're feeling something else other than loving kindness, just check into that as well. What is it I'm feeling? There may be something to learn here. Now, if it's possible, and it's not always easy to do this, but see if you can send loving kindness to yourself. You can imagine it coming down your body from your heart. You can just have a sense of it. May I be safe and protected from danger. May I be healthy and strong. May I be happy and peaceful. May I accept myself just as I am. And as you ask yourself this question, what do I need to be happy? See what arises and offer that to yourself. May I have meaningful work, a joyful life, close friends and family. And now checking into yourself and noticing what it is that you feel as you do this. And let yourself bring to mind one person or a group of people that you wish to send loving kindness to. Imagine them in front of you and sense them and feel them. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be free of stress and anxiety and fear, worry and grief. May you have joy and happiness and well-being. And now let this loving kindness expand out, spreading, touching anyone that you want to touch right now in all directions, people you know, people you don't know, people you have difficulty with, people you love. Just imagine expanding and touching, and each person or animal, whoever is touched by this loving kindness, each person is changed. You can imagine that. So may everyone everywhere be happy and peaceful and at ease in the world. May we all experience great joy. Maybe just pause for a minute and just take a few deep breaths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I often, when I do that, I often think of that practice and even think about it both in terms of even like someone I have had a difficult time with, as well as people that I loved, or it could be my pet. And I've also thought about people in the world that way too, you know, just what is going on with people in different parts of the world. So at this point, I would just like to ask you any feedback, any from that experience, anything you'd like to share. You can either put it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself if you'd like to share something about your experience with that meditation, that loving kindness meditation. Anything, people? Gail's sharing me that she feels very relaxed. Anybody want to share any person that comes to mind, or pet, or any images that come up?
Could I share that like we don't really take the time to think about our loved ones as often as we should. And so I feel like that feeling that just came right there, we should be feeling more often, and that this little practice was, I think I will probably incorporate this into my life.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think about that too with people, you know, and actually I found myself choking up a little bit when I was reading this, but you know, just thinking about people I've lost in my life, you know, people that meant a lot to me, that I can bring in the feeling, the positive feeling that I got from that person, even though they're no longer living. It's kind of inside me, and that is such a comforting feeling. And you know, so it could be, you know, someone that's no longer with us, or it could be someone that's alive. But yeah, thank you. We can, if we're thinking about someone, maybe we can even reach out to them as we're thinking about them and say, I'm thinking of you. You know, that's kind of great to hear. Thank you so much. Someone say, Sarah saying that it does make you sleepy. Yes, I know that is true. That meditation can make us sleepy at times. And so that does happen. Not a problem. Just, you know, something that goes on. Sometimes we don't take a moment to relax, and when we do, it makes us a little bit sleepy. And Lori was saying it's a great way to say goodbye. Kim was saying it was very emotional. I hope you don't mind me sharing that. Yeah, I felt that way too. I felt kind of emotional when you think about even caring about, you know, caring about other people in the world, or caring about yourself. You know, sometimes we spend more time caring about other people than we do attend to our own needs. Patty is sharing, there's so much suffering in the world, and it's helpful to think that sending loving kindness may help. Yeah. And it's also nice to think about people in the world. And I think, you know, I think the hope with these kinds of practices is that it will, you know, help us empathize. Not only, you know, sometimes we just get so caught up in our own lives that you know, we don't think as much about other people and what they're going through, and this way we can engage with what's going on around the world, maybe even think of ways that we can help other people. So thank you. And also just the idea that you can send that positive energy out into the world. So thank you so much. I guess we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here. So the last kind of discussion was around focusing our attention. And maybe what I would like to just say here is that attention is our most precious commodity, and that we have different ways of attending to things. And this is important for students, I think. I guess one of the ideas I keep thinking about is how students, you know, can study in these circumstances, or just in general. Or if we're just, you know, in our everyday tasks, how we can focus our attention, how we can direct our attention and control where our attention is going. So I guess as we talked about, there's a lot of different circuits of attention. One relates to just being alert and being ready to pay attention. Another relates to being oriented and directing our attention in a particular way. And then there's something called conflict attention, which means your ability to continue to attend to something even when there's something distracting. So I guess the reason I bring this up in mindful meditation is because mindful meditation helps us direct our attention in the ways we want to direct it. We can direct it on our breathing, we can direct it to sounds, what's going on with us presently. And if we practice this and continue to practice it, we can learn how to control that muscle of our mind in the direction that we want to direct it. So, and I just want to actually add here that by focusing our attention, it puts us in control. It grows our brain. We learn that we can do one thing at a time, and multitasking tends to divide our attention. So I also say one thing at a time, or one step at a time, helps us focus our attention. So there are other practices. I'm not going to go into them, but I do have a handout that you'll be receiving, which will have a few of these. There's walking meditation, where you focus just on like your steps, or you kind of notice things around you as you're walking. Eating meditation, I mentioned that before. There's a stop practice, where you can just stop and engage and notice what's going on with you, and then just proceed, decide what you want to do with that. If you're under stress, for example. There's a practice called RAIN, which you'll have in your handout, which is for working with emotions. You can also work with your thoughts and interactions with other people and pain. So there are many, many practices. I was noticing that Mindful Magazine, which I subscribe to, just a digital version of it, they have a lot of meditations in that magazine. I think some of them can be accessed without even having to pay for the subscription. But they have also something called Mindful 30, which usually in the month of September, where they go through a kind of a mindful challenge. That isn't free, but you know, it is something that if you're really, you know, if you do have the resources, I mean, I think it costs something like $50 or something to do that, which could be a lot for some people. So I just want to acknowledge. And again, I want to mention, as far as resources, the Mindful Awareness Research Center, where you can access this. So I recommend that you set aside some time each day, that you have a space. You can decide what position you want to take, whether it's sitting on the floor, on a chair, lying down, and all are fine. You can use guided or unguided meditations, and you can practice mindfulness either formally or informally. But it is recommended to do at least a brief daily practice if you can. I once had a teacher, a mindful teacher, who said, take 3 deep breaths 3 times a day. So, and you can sometimes just even pause and breathe deeply, like you're waiting in line, or you're at the corner waiting for the light to change, or those kinds of situations. Waiting in line at the store. So just try to keep a daily, continue with your practice. There's a log that you'll have if you had, that you may have started to fill out last time. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask you if you had a chance to even note some practices. But if you don't have time to do a formal practice, I recommend an informal practice. And I guess don't necessarily expect miracles from mindfulness, but over time, it really develops. And I have noticed a change of myself with this practice. I've noticed that I, tend to be less anxious than I have been in the past since I practice it, a little more calm in being more of an observer. Just know that you don't have to be perfect and have a forgiving attitude. Like if your mind wanders, say that's okay and just bring it back to the present. So I'm sorry, we kind of went over time a little bit here. Any comments or feedback or questions? There is an evaluation form that I'd like you to fill out after this. I have a resource list and some other handouts that will go out. There's a log you can use to just note, your any practices that you might want to try out. Any comments or questions? Okay, let's see. Here's my contact information. And then just to share with you, the upcoming workshop is next Monday, and that will be on values and purpose. And then we're going to skip 1 week for Labor Day, and then we'll be talking a little bit more about what we call thinking flexibly, on September 14th. Just take a few breaths and just relax as we're getting ready for the rest of our day. Okay, I'm gonna say goodbye. Great seeing you all. See you next week.